How are you feeling now that this record's out in the world?
I feel great. Um, it was a lot of work. It was a great education in sound and patience, which I don't have a lot of. So yeah, it's great. I had a lot of anxiety around it. Lots of anxiety because I thought, um, what if people don't get it, or what if people don't don't like it in general, right? Like there's always this vulnerability that comes with releasing something, because like what Nifty was saying when we were in Chile, I was like, oh yeah, La Papesa, time to put it out because I got a grant for it. And I didn't really care as much for La Papesa. My Papesa process was more about learning how to record myself and how to collaborate. And it was like my first attempts at orchestrating brass.
Wow.
That was it. So that's why I got the money, was so I could pay other people so that I could afford a studio. So I didn't really care about what would happen with La Papesa. And then lo and behold,
People heard it. Yeah.
people heard it.
Yeah.
And then, so for Miss Colombia, I was like, okay, I'm going to be more intentional about it. I'm going to make sure that I work with someone that I really respect and admire, which is Nifty. And I had my shitty demos, and I went to his house, and I brought them to him. And thankfully, he liked it, and he had a vision for it, and he shared my vision for them, and that's what we did. So right now, it feels like, you know it's great because I first showed him the stuff in 2016. So to right, it's like it's been a process. Yeah.
Amazing. And you're hitting on something really interesting there. Like you're talking about like being worried about releasing it, but did you find when you were actually writing this time round, knowing that you were much more on the radar musically, did you find not just musically, but right with your entire practice as an artist, did you find there's any kind of different internal process you're having to deal with, or it seems like you're so prolific creatively across all the different mediums that you use. I can't imagine you ever not just sitting down and making stuff. But did you notice any kind of changes or growth or kind of processes you had to move through to get comfortable in recent times?
Not really. I think the only pressures that I feel are, I don't like to disappoint the people that believe in me, or the people that trust me. Um, like that being, like everything happened really quickly in 2017, and like, oh, now I have management, and like in 2017, and like the years prior, I was in university, and if people wanted to book me, I had like a fake email that was my manager, like things like that, like there's always, the creativity is always there. This was more about, I really hope I don't mess this up, because now there's a label that saw me performing live. Actually, you were at that show in
Oh, right.
LA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they saw me, and that was it. Like that was like, we don't know what you're about. We love your show. So I'm like, can I translate the energy of my live show into a recording? And to me, that was the biggest challenge. How can I put my energy into something that is to sound refined and well presented and packaged nicely? So I don't know how to do that, because I am very experimental, and what's the word? I improvise,
Right.
right? So now I have a label, and they put money towards the project, and there's a management, and there's like these new people that want to know what you're about.
Mhm.
So in that respect, yeah, like it was more of a responsibility to show myself in the best way possible, and doing something that was legendary, so I did it.
Amazing. So, but it sounds like there's a really interesting choice of specific word in your answer there, which is you said challenge. And it sounds to me like I mean, even like when we were first emailing in like 2011 or something like that, I think, right?
Yeah.
But like, it just sounds, and all my time with you, can I tell a little side story? Actually, folks, Lido is featured on a record that I've got coming out in about 3 weeks. And she came to my studio here in LA, and I was like super stressed out because I'd just like switched all of my computers over to PCs thinking that would be a great idea, and like nothing was working. And I was just like hyper stressed. And she arrives, and just like the energy that you're able to bring into a room was like incredible. You just like gave me so much confidence. And I was like, all this stuff is falling apart. And do you remember you had all your friends from Femina about to turn up as well?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just texted me like, oh yeah, my 3 friends are coming over. It's going to be great. And I was like, oh my God. But I just remember there was just something about like your force of will and clarity on like, this situation is going to be amazing, which really, really stuck with me. And I've only seen in like a few artists in my whole career. And I think that's where I like became your biggest fan. So I just think your use of the term of like, these things are a challenge, you have these additional responsibilities, but you're able to kind of really project your mind forward to a positive result. Do you think is that like a conscious thing with you, or do you think it's just like inherent? Because I mean, you're also, you've got so many things going on in your life. You have like kids, you got like roots in different countries, you're juggling so many different aspects as well, but you're still able to kind of come out with like this very clear message and clear identity and kind of clear vibe.
Well, I think that all comes from my Indigenous background. Women there juggle a lot, and all of the energy and all your responsibility gets centered and captured into weaving. So in the tradition of weaving, you have all these threads. Actually, when you look at the weaving of especially the hammocks that we make, when that weaving, it looks just like an Ableton project file ensemble.
Amazing.
So, you have all your threads and you have a grid, right? So I just see everything in my life like that. Okay. So even when I write songs, I think of sound in terms of a chromatic circle. So what goes with what color goes with what's complementary with this and that thing. So I try to apply those rules in everything that I do. And it's very important to be organized. And I think we actually talked about this when we first met, about how some artists really live the idea of the starving artist and carry that through. Like, their computer is a mess, it's all dirty, like their space is dirty, like they don't shower in shows. I have never been about that. And I think that that's also because of my growing up in Colombia and being around, people that are very posh, but also people that are very poor. And what we all have in common is that people really carry their dignity with them. So it doesn't matter if, we live in like a shack. It doesn't matter if we live in a small little tiny house and we're all sharing a tiny room. We're all going to be really well presented and well dressed for Sunday. And we're going to send our children to school with perfect white bleach socks and well done hair, because we have to carry our dignity with us. So for me, I like to apply that, like, grace. It's very important, and self-love and respect. I don't really believe in humility. I think that we're going to talk about that later, but I feel like I need to carry myself and know within myself that I am great. And I have to respect myself, but I also need other people to respect me. So that's how I do everything. That's how I'm able to manage everything. Everything deserves time. You have to be honest with people. You have to have expectations. And I am a very generous person. So I sometimes it works against me, but I like to share and I like to collaborate. And in that honesty and collaboration, then you know how to pick the right person for something. And I think the most important thing about me is, like, I need to delegate. If you put everything on yourself, nothing is going to get done. So you have to learn how to delegate, right? So I have a critical eye and I have good taste. So I need to use that to my advantage. And I try to do that every time, because by 6 p.m., I have to feed the baby and she has to go to sleep, and my son has homework, so I have to be there for him, you know. So for me to be able to be a good mother, I need to be organized in my job. And that's how I'm able to do it.
Amazing. And when you had the transition to kids being in your life, did you find, I mean, did you find what you're talking about there was like inherently in you, or and then did it wind up leveling up when you had kids because it's like really serious, like that's a responsibility you cannot move? And did that like change your approach to using time and using your day at all?
Absolutely. When I started getting booked for shows, you know, I no longer was thinking like, oh, I would like to make $300. It was more about, wait, if I get $300, out of the 300, I have to get 80 for the nanny, plus 20 for the snacks, plus 50 for the cabs back and forth because I'm not going to carry my gear. You know, like you start seeing yourself as, okay, like there is an economy behind this. I want to be able to support my kid. You know, it's only me that's supporting my kid, so I really have to be organized. So that added, you know, awareness, it made me just be more realistic with myself and set these goals that were very realistic and very attainable. And you know, for like my in La Papesa, it was great because I was like writing, when I started writing the music, you know, I would write my essays because I went to school, and then my son would go to sleep, and then after he would go to sleep, then I would go on YouTube and like how to record through computer
Amazing.
program exclamation question mark,
Yeah.
right? And then I started getting a sense of it, you know. And that's how I did it, you know. You just have to find your time, and having children, it really, it either makes you more mature and more organized, or you just crash and burn. So I
Hmm.
decided that I was going to um, uh, be better and more organized, and I was not going to fall into that cliche of not just like the baby mama and the baby mama drama and like the single, you know, teen mom like none of that stuff. It was more about, I'm gonna be the best person and I'm gonna be a great artist because I already am. I just need my fine tuning. And
Hmm.
mm.
Amazing. And the time then that you like spend with your kids, do you find that you're able to be fully present with them, or do you find there's a fun way in which like creative ideas percolate so that when you have free time, well, free time, or you know,
Mm.
working time or whatever you want to call it, like you're very clear on what your next step is? Because it really does sound like you figured out how to understand what is the thing I'm trying to achieve with this period of time, instead of just being like, oh, I'm just going to hang out and see what comes to me. So did you find that rhythm is like, I wouldn't say necessarily useful, but like were you able to spin it into, you know, almost giving yourself more momentum?
Life has to be lived in order for one to have material to talk about. So when I'm with my kids, that's when the prolific Lido turns up, right? Like when I'm with my daughter, you know, Nada, which were live mixing, and I was really learning because I'm working on a remix for some artist in Chile right now. Um, she gave me the song. My baby gave me the song,
Hmm.
right? Like Nada is a perfect example for that because, you know, you give birth, the placenta comes out, and then they say, bye, go home. You have this baby now, and there's a hole inside of you. But you're a woman, figure it out. So I come home and I can't even walk, but I still have to, you know, rock my baby to sleep. And even when I was having like the labor pains, like I had to sing to myself so that I could, you know, somehow have the so I could resist that pain because it's so
Hmm.
painful. And that's what I did. I was like, okay, I am gonna push through this pain because the weight of my baby on my belly and like that hole, I'm really feeling it right now. So let me just sing this lullaby to the baby, and that's how it came about, you know. And like my son's growing up, right? Like he has all these questions about life and very impossible questions. very metaphysical questions, like what happens in the afterlife, or he's hilarious. So he'll be like, so how would you rather die?
Wow.
Killed, killed by a monster or a spy, with like all these questions. So it's like, how then he gets me thinking, and I'm like, you know what? There's an idea coming here. So
Hmm.
you have to live your life, and I also don't write romantic songs. I don't write songs about, the love between two human beings, or the love between a man and a woman. I don't really write about that stuff. So I really need to live my life. And the people that listen to me, I find that are in the same boat that I am, which is to figure out how to take care of my kids, and how to make sure that in 10 years my baby can actually go to a river without worrying about, growing a third eye in her chest, like, so, yeah.
Nice, nice. And um, you, I have to say, like when COVID-19 hit, I remember like seeing on your Instagram, and you're like in your art studio, and so I'm hoping we can like delve a little bit into your multidisciplinarianism, and this dovetails amazingly with like your ability to get results. So you went in, and I just, you're posting photos of yourself painting, and like last night you're just doing a little Instagram live, and just people are hanging out and painting with you, and as that process unfolded, it turned out, oh, you're making like hand painted record sleeves for people, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then was it yesterday you posted like, oh yeah, I've just made 100, and I was like, what the hell? So it's like, you have this amazing ability to actually keep busy, but then like also have a huge output. The actual amount of stuff you can make is insane. But just honing this question in a little bit, how do you feel that kind of like music and visual art, and then within visual art, all the different, paintings or ceramics or textiles and stuff like that you're working in, do you feel they're just different parts of the same whole, or do you feel when certain parts of your psyche are like hungry for one of those flavors that you kind of naturally gravitate towards them? Or how does your mind work and your kind of spirit work around all those different aspects of your artistic practice?
Well, it goes back to that chromatic circle.
Yeah.
There's not just one color, there's not just one lane. Um, and in the COVID-19 limitations, I basically look around my studio, and I go, what do I have? Right. So I have like all this yarn, and then I have a little bit of clay. So I'm like, I wonder what it would look like if I have this clay, and then I weave this textiles, and then I just try it. I'm like, oh, it looks good. How much do I have left? Oh, I can make like 20. Okay, I'm gonna make a series of 20. And then when we found out that we couldn't go on tour, I called John, my manager, and I was like, get me a box of record sleeves, but I need them blank, because I'm gonna paint them. Like because I know what I can do. I looked at my shelf and I saw all this paint, and I'm like, what would be cool and relevant right now? Okay, great. I'm gonna paint it. And then I have a silk screening practice. Because I didn't go to school for music. I went to school for art. And when I was still living in Colombia, I was in this university program, for kids, like kids that were interested in it. So I was like 11 going to university.
Oh, wow.
For art, and I was receiving my lessons with this, like master painter, but the school, which is called Universidad del Atlántico, and in the building, to go to the art department, you had to go through the theater and the music department.
Oh, wow.
So that's where I made my first friend. So I'm 11 years old. And then there was a group of guys, and they're all wearing Dragon Ball Z t-shirts. And they all have like, hair longer than mine. And they're all like pale, and like they have a guitar, and they look all gloom. And they were trying to translate the words to, I think the band was called 6 Feet Under.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a black metal band. And I was like, oh, I can speak English. Let me do it. And I translated it for them. And they were like, wow, can you do more? And I was like, yeah, but can I be in your band? And they're looking at me like, you're like a little baby, like what? No, but I can let me learn the songs. And that's what I did. And I went home and then I learned some of the like Fear Factory, Creative Filth, and that's when I learned how to do guttural.
No
So I
way.
never forgot. Yeah, so I was like 12, 13, like like imagine me like right now I don't even know how people like I look like but imagine me even tiny teeny me and just like like doing like that, and I'm like this is so fun, and that's how I got started. It's like, oh, I'm gonna use this music, and then I'm gonna make my music friends, and then I'm gonna have my theater friends, and I'm gonna go paint. And I think it's because it was all in the same. It was all happening at the same time. So I don't know any other way of working.
Right. So
Like
you
I
don't see like any differentiation or
no
distinction there. Yeah.
no, and
Wow.
and I think that's why when I put something out, the visual element it's so entrenched with the sound, because I'm like it has to make sense.
Yeah.
It has to be true to it.
Do you find that you have visual ideas like simultaneously with melodic ideas? Like, do you hear a melody and see a color, or like feel an image and it has a song to it, or something like that?
Oh yeah. I have a reputation of being a badass bitch, okay? Like don't tell anybody about this hippie part of me. But um I do see it, like even when I'm painting, there's a repetition pattern. A lot of music making and producing, it's about repetition and it's about patience. It's about putting those little elements together. So, like I'll be walking, uh, like with my baby or my son, I'll go to the park and you hear like a rhythm, or like, there's always construction on my street. So, I just learned to just hop on the beat of the streets,
Mm-hmm.
and then luckily, I have my phone on me, and then I'll just record it, like do a quick voice note, and that becomes a song later. And that's how I've been writing the new songs. But I totally see it when I sing. It really is the closest to, God that I have is my singing, and my communication with my spirits is when I sing. And sometimes I'm live singing for a lot of people, but my eyes are closed. So I'm trying to get myself out of that habit that I can like actually engage with people. But it's this moment where my eyes are closed, and I see a road, and I just see like concentric waves, but they look like neon lights and like stardust. And Neil deGrasse always says like, oh, you're made out of stars, and I'm like, yeah, like I feel that I feel that I am, because when I close my eyes and I'm singing a lullaby to my baby, like I see it, like I see a lot of like stardust.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important too, and this is something that we talk with Nifty a lot. you know I want the songs to be very well produced. That's why he's on board, because he's great. But I also want the songs to be able to be performed in like a post-apocalyptic world. When there's no mics, where there's no internet, when there's no oops sorry, when there's no when there's no amplifiers, and there's no keyboards, and there's so the melody has to be beautiful, and you have to be able to remind it, and you have to be able to perform, um, whether or not you have backing tracks or instrumentation behind it. So there's something very elementary about it, and it comes from my love of color.
Hmm.
Like that's where that comes from. It's like going back to that chromatic circle.
Right.
It's like the most rudimentary, the most elemental. Yeah.
Does that idea tie into like the whole album starts a cappella and expands out from there? And I'm really struck by that moment as well. I forget the actual song titles, but you go from there's a song or two that are all completely just like location recordings in the jungle, and then there's a next one where your backing track, your accompaniment is all live, but then your voice switches to like in a studio, kind of like hyper real voice. And I was like, really kind of like that switch in textures was like quite profound for me, and then like switching again back over to, you know, the next song is full like electronic production and everything. Were those kind of like very deliberate statements that you wanted to make, the way that you step between those different levels of presentation?
Yes! It is. And let me tell you why.
Okay, let's do it.
I think that there is this sick, twisted, evil reverence to the electric guitar. Okay? Let me just say it. Okay? And when I say the electric guitar, I say it in like in a way that I feel like Paul McCartney has to die in order for us to not think that the Beatles are the best music in the world. Electric guitar and rock and roll by white people seems to be the canon of what is good music and what deserves to be in a record that actually gets sold and reproduced. So to me, the reverence that 99% of the world has to an electric guitar, I have it with tambora, alegre, or the traditional drums in Colombia and that come from Africa. So to me, if we didn't have an alegre or a drum, that's made out of cow skin and like stretch hide, like we wouldn't have rock and roll, right? As we know it, via, the Brit and like the Beatles and stuff like that. So to me, putting Quiero que me salves and Pelo Cucú, those songs that we did out in the field, without any whistles or bells or decorations, just straight from how it happened, right in the middle, in the center of the record. It was important to me because I wanted people to just hear the songs for what they are: beautiful songs, not some study on musicology and none of that. It's like, this just happens to be a song that doesn't really require any of the synths and stuff like that. And I also thought about it in terms of the vinyl itself, the physical action of putting on a record onto your in your record player, that there's a side A and there's a side B. So I wanted, let's start with all the synthy electronic, weaving of the of the live program, and then we're gonna turn the page, and then we're gonna sit back and really feel this beat, made with a human hand beating a drum. And that's why it was important for me to do it. It's like, to this day, in my musical attempts, like, there's still no guitar, there's still no, and I do that consciously. Like, I try to not need for it. I'm getting a little bit more lenient about it. Like, I'm collaborating with people that, play guitar and stuff, and I like how they use it, like, but it's like, for the longest time, it was like, if the guitar is not coming from Sucus or Soca, I don't want it. If it's not coming from the Saharan desert, I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't care for it. Horrible.
Well, I gotta say as well, I mean, those moments on the record, like, I think are just, I hope this doesn't sound so, like, the most basic thing to say, but they're just so human, because you can really feel that it's people. And, doing what I do, producing records, it's like I always have a thing where I'm looking for it to feel like a record. But I think what you've done on there is you're like, it's not just a record, this is people. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, there's something about you as a whole and your ability to communicate and kind of, I think, like, going back to what you're saying about presenting yourself with dignity, and there's just a certain class and a certain empathy that you can generate in people through your music and through your art as a whole that I'm quite affected by. But listen, we have a couple of questions in the chat up here. There's one from DDD Danny Daru, who says, "Hi, Lido. Have you ever struggled with people in the music industry who have rigid expectations about your content and style as an Indigenous artist?"
I don't think that the troubles and tribulations that I've encountered in this very wild industry have come because of being Indigenous. I think it basically, the problems that I had is because I was too young and too naive and impressionable. And because I'm a woman, maybe things are getting a little better now, but 10 years ago, how old was I 10 years ago? I was 19, right? So when I did my first record, and the songs that I put on my MySpace, people heard them and they loved it, and all of a sudden I was just like the Latin Colombian darling that everyone wanted to do a song with, and I was like, "Yay, great! I love it! Yeah, let's do it." But I didn't know that there are contracts and there's splits and there's royalties and all these things. So I think that was the main problem that was my lack of education in the industry and business side of it. And because it was so obvious that I didn't know, then the people that did know took advantage, because they just saw this like little girl that was completely clueless, that was eager to please, that line in one of the Furtado songs, and I remember the day when I was so eager to satisfy you. I was like that. I feel that so much, which, and then one day she was in my house eating arepa, so that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But but it's just so funny, like just like stuff like that just happens. But at the same time, I'm grateful that those bad experiences happened when I was still so young.
Right.
That now, 10 years later, it's like, oh, I got this.
Yeah.
Like,
And so
like,
we don't need any details about any event itself, but was there a particular moment when you suddenly went, oh, hang on, I need to like get on top of all of this?
Well, the main thing was, and it really traumatized me and actually caused me to take like a 5-year break. I think I was getting to the end of my break when you messaged me, when you got a hold of me, when you wrote me. I was like, it took me back to that Marilyn Manson, I don't like the drugs, but the drugs like me. It's like, I don't like the music, but music likes me, because I get all these amazing people like knocking on my door. But the thing was, like my first record, like before La Papesa, when I was like the Colombian darling, whatever, I got interest from venue in Spain to have me go down there and perform. Great, everything good, everything nice. Only that I never got the email. The email was sent to a friend of a friend who claimed that he was my manager because he had this record label. And he not only said that he was my manager, he said that I am kind of a diva and I don't talk to third parties. So he did a whole business. He actually did a European tour using my name, okay? But then called me to say, oh, there's like we're doing a European tour. Do you want to come as a backup singer?
Whoa.
And I said, oh, of course, as long as you don't put my name out there, because I'm working on new songs and I don't really have anything new out. So I'll just be that. I'll love to come on tour. I'll be your backup singer. And then a week after, I said yes, I get a strange email from my friend, Isa GT. She's an amazing, everyone go look her up. She's an amazing producer. She runs her label. She's based in London and Berlin, and she was living in London at the time. And she was like, did you cancel a show in Sweden? And I'm like, when am I going to Sweden? Yeah, I got these people saying that you cancel on them and they want me to perform instead of you. Oh, really? And then she sends me a photo, and there was like a theater, and it had my name in big letters.
Whoa.
When I was supposed to play and all that stuff. Then I get a message from the people in Spain, and they're like, we're so sorry, the government just changed, and we're not getting the same funding that we're getting from the previous government. So only a few of you artists are going to be able to come. And I wrote them privately, and I was like, why are you messaging me when I'm not playing in Spain? This artist is playing in Spain. I'm coming as his backup singer. And they're like, oh no, they're only coming because your manager told us that he's your band. I'm in Toronto, they're in Argentina. How are you, my band?
Wow.
So and it unfolded all of these shows that were happening with my name on them. So they basically dragged my name as the girl that canceled shows without any heads up
Wow.
or reason. And I just said, this shit is not for me. I'm done. Like I already wrote songs for people that got Grammys and they didn't even put me in their credits.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
very traumatic, like to be this prolific and this bright, because I know that I am. Again, not humble. I'm not humble. I'm realistic. It's just humble. Humble comes from like humility, and
Hmm.
it's too close to humiliation. So,
Right.
Another conversation.
That's a,
But
that's a that's a good string there. I'm gonna remember that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it really comes from like Spanish conquistadores
Hmm.
coming to South America and seeing indigenous women naked and putting shame on our bodies
Mm.
and saying, you have to humiliate, you have to be humble because you have to humiliate for God,
Mm.
this guy that you don't know about, and then that's when Latin America and South America, became the mess that they are now, and why my people are so oppressed, right? So I don't believe in humility. But yeah, going back to that experience with this guy, like it crushed me,
Mm.
So I decided, okay. And when that was happening, I was breaking up with baby daddy number one. He left, and I was like, you know what? I need a whole change of lifestyle. I'm gonna go to school. I registered myself to become an art critic and curator, and I said, no more music,
Wow.
no more music. Forget about it. So I moved to Toronto with my baby and like a laptop, and that was it.
Amazing.
And then I'm like walking in the hallways, and then this girl from Brazil, she's like, aren't you Lido Pimienta? Like, what are you doing in Toronto? Are you going to school? And I'm like, yeah, I don't do music anymore. And she begged me for like 2 weeks straight to perform at her gallery.
Hmm.
And I did. And I haven't stopped since,
Right.
But like that needed to happen
Yeah.
for me to be like, yeah, girl, write a contract, read a contract, get a contract so that you
Okay.
can secure yourself. So now it's like, you can't tell me nothing.
Yeah.
You want me to feature in your song? Show me the euros and I'll write you a hit. If you don't got them, let's work out something else. Like, it's fine,
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. All right. Now there's another question on here in Spanish from Lakbla. Can you see the Twitch chat where you are? You might
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
scroll up a little bit. Lido, tengo una pregunta. I'll let you speak. And totally cool to answer in Spanish if you want to as well.
She wants to know, or they want to know, how do I create a balance between my indigenous roots that are informing our reality in North America, balancing culture, history, music, and identity. My parents are Indian in New York, and it's something that I'm always trying to express in an artistic way. Um, yeah, so it's funny because when I'm in Colombia, I don't even think about the things, but I'm in North America, the land of talking about your identity all the time, constantly. And if you don't do it, then, or if you don't specifically say what you're about, if you write a song about a flower, that becomes the revolutionary flower. So that's how I am able to balance it. Like it's not even about balance. It's the way that I carry myself, you know, and like faking it till I make it. And when I'm in the room, I hype myself up. Like I'm my hype woman to myself. Um, and I don't really have to put on, like, I don't have to wear my culture, like I don't have to wear a t-shirt that says I'm Colombian or I'm indigenous, like I feel like when you see me, you can tell that there's all this history and all this heritage in me. So my thing to balance, or my thing to exist and succeed in this very messed up, hyphenated reality that I live in, I just try to be the best, and I don't half-ass anything. And that's the indigenous way. It's like you do what you gotta do now. You just get it done, and you just get it done so that you can take a long nap later. Like that's just what we do. That's how I was raised. It's like I come from a place like my family. They live in the desert. There's no electricity and there's no water, so you need to get everything done before sundown, and then you're gonna eat, and then you're gonna share space with your family. That's how I live. So what can I do now? How much time do I have left? And I also have so many ideas. And it all goes hand in hand with my identity, and it all goes hand in hand with what I believe, what I want to do, and the people that I want to help. By the way, go in the chat and donate now into that link that I put there, because I'm trying to raise funds for elders and musicians of traditional music in Colombia that are going through a really rough time right now. But yeah, that's how I do it. I'm true to myself. I don't have to pretend to be this exotic person with all the. I am who I am, and I just exist. Yeah.
Love that. Jabruski is saying, how did the Colombians in your latest music video receive you?
I mean, okay, I'll talk about the Eso que tú haces video, the one that were with the dancers. When I was 15, I used to sing in that group. So I actually have grown up with all those dancers. And because I was in the band, in the music part of the dance group, I knew all the dances and I knew all the rhythms. So I knew we're going to start with bullerengue, then we're going to go into son de negro, and then we're going to go into chapeta. And, I directed the group because I knew the dances. So it was very natural. Like for them, it was just like, oh, hey, sis. So it was, regular. We were in Palenque, which I visit often when I'm in Colombia, and Sexteto Tabala are from there. So I'm like their adopted niece, daughter, granddaughter. So I'm very familiar. Like that's just where I am. Again, I am Colombian. I am Black. I am Indigenous. Like it's not. These aren't labels, or these aren't like nouns or like this is who I am. So when I'm home, I'm home. There's nothing different or strange. And then in the Nada video, so Liliana, she's the singer of Bomba Estéreo, this amazing group from Colombia. You should also check it out. I'm gonna write it right now. Bomba Estéreo, check it out. And they so Liliana, she lives, that's basically her backyard. And again, I visit her often, so people know, and she's always doing photo shoots and she's always taking photos. So it's like, Liliana and her group are doing another video. Like it's nothing, and it's also like in the middle of a jungle, really. So there's also not a lot of people. So that's why I love to do videos in Colombia. Like people just, people are just relaxing and just, they support you. And even for the photo shoot of like the cover of the album, we did it in a town called Puerto Colombia, and it was pretty demanding photo shoot because we're on scaffoldings and all this stuff. And my baby was very like, when I did those videos, I had just given birth.
Wow.
Okay, so we had the neighbors in the neighborhood, which we didn't know them. But they took care of the baby, bathed the baby, fed the baby. I would go down to check on her. It was like around the block. And I would go like, how's the baby? Oh, she's taking a nap. And there's like 3 women fanning my baby and massaging her feet, And then I would go again. It's like, oh, she's taking a bath now. And they're like taking photos. I would like just love it. That would never happen in Canada. That just some random neighbor would just like, someone who you don't know, they're like, oh, I'll take care of your baby. Oh, great. Oh, use my house. Yeah, use it as storage. No problem. Oh, the cameras. Yeah, they're safe here. Here, take the key. So that's where I'm from, So that's where I'm from. I was very lucky that I grew up there. I know a lot of people that don't have that connection to the country of origin because they were brought to South America or to North America or Europe way too young to have or to build that identity. So, it's just who I am. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. That's great. And another question from the same person who's asking who your favorite artists are at this time. And I'm going to throw that to like the full multidisciplinary, not just music.
Okay, so while we were we were working on Miss Colombia, we listened to D'Angelo, because basically to know if everything was sounding right, Nifty would put on that album, and that taught me a lot about what it takes to make a room sound really good. So
Mm-hmm.
shout out to Nifty every day of my life. I love him. Um, and we also were listening to Tirsa a lot, Devotion. So I'm in love with that record. I cannot get enough of it. And we also heard a lot of Invisible Cloaks. I think they're from Portland. Very beautiful stuff. Um, from South America and Central America, that's a long list. I should just like write it all here. But listening to Busca Bulla. They're from Puerto Rico and they're based in New York, I think. This band also from Puerto Rico, based in New York too. Yeah, called Balloon. They're amazing, beautiful. Xenia Rubinos. She just put out a song with Helado Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. um, Basically, everyone that I follow that's in music in my Instagram, they're amazing. There's this artist from Argentina called Chancha Via Circuito. I listen to him a lot. His latest record, Buenaventuranza, it's just a beautiful record to me. It was the best. Tirsa and his album to me were the best from last year. Who else? There's this girl, I forget her name, Vaughn. I don't know. It's like one of those complicated white names. But she's amazing.
Yeah.
Something, something, Vaughn, something.
Okay.
I can quickly find it. Anyways, everyone in my Instagram, yeah, and as far as art, I'm very obsessed over the movie Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. It's a new Czech wave film, but new in the 70s, so it's from 1970, and it's a film about the sexual awakening of this 13-year-old girl called Valerie. And it's like a horror film, but it's also a comedy. It's theater, but it's also like fantastical. And the soundtrack, let me tell you about that soundtrack. So it's by Lubos Fisser. I mean, can't go wrong there. But it's the most beautiful soundtrack from beginning to end. And it's basically the music that I want to make on my next record. So I'm just constantly listening to that and the photography of the era. Because I don't know why, but maybe it's because I'm very happy in my life, like my romantic life and my sentimental life, and my children give me a lot of love, and my family, like we're going through a very good moment right now. So I feel like I am obsessed with beauty with a capital B, like the Sublime. I'm like very interested in that. I'm like reading about beauty and the Sublime right now, like the paintings of like the man against a wave, like that, like that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like the waves and like choirs and like mallet instruments. Yeah, so
That's great. We have another question here. What kind of music would you personally like to see more of come out? So I guess that's kind of, if we can paraphrase that, is that meaning like just general music that there should be more of in the world, kind of thing?
We need to hear more. I think that the music is out there. What needs to shift is the algorithm, because I find that even with me, like the most after Miss Colombia came out, the most that people are saying, like the comparison for the search engine is like eBay and Rosalia, and I'm like, I feel like maybe the voice, because like I go really high, maybe that's what it is, but I feel like the algorithm should direct people immediately to Martina Camargo, Etelvina Maldonado, like this, like Colombian cantaoras, right? Maybe I am not doing the work, but I feel like we're getting very lazy when it comes to these kinds of labels, right? Like Sexteto Tabala it's a perfect example. Like the amount of music that they've put out and the amount of beauty that they've put out in the world, they should be the Beatles, right? Like that's how I see it. I find that about a lot of indigenous and Afro-Colombian music and African music in general. We don't really hear it unless you're African, unless you're in the culture. I going back to what Nifty was saying, like I would like check this out and check this out and check this out, because it's almost as if I didn't grow up in Colombia, I would have missed out on so many wonderful artists and
Yeah,
fantastic
I
music,
got
because we just
the most obscene thing in a record store being like speaking as a white dude with British parents, but it's like
mhm.
all the rest of the music in the entire world in the record store gets just called world music. And it's like if it's not
Horrible,
from England or
yeah,
North America, and it's like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I totally know what you mean, because I really fight against that.
yeah.
Um, I think the biggest insult that people can say about what I do is that I do world music. I think that it's very racist, very alienating, and it just makes people dumb.
Mm,
There's so much music that people aren't enjoying because we just have to listen to what's like trendy now. Like this is what's trendy now, and it's so funny. Like even when I try to not have any apps on my phone that are like Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that, like I'll have them on my iPad specifically for when I'm painting.
right.
But in my life, I try to go and find other apps that will bring me to this other music, or just go on a down the rabbit hole on YouTube and see the related stuff, and just like doing it yourself. It's because yeah, I think that people are missing out, and like it wakes me up in the middle of the night to know that I'm missing out on this music because the algorithm is taking me to the same crap,
Yeah, yeah,
so
totally. I'd love to talk to you more about what you're saying about the sublime and the beautiful. Do you think people have enough sublime beauty in their lives?
no,
It's
no,
kind of an obvious
no,
question, but I love
we
that you brought
don't,
that up.
because all the beauty that we get to see gets reduced to the screen that's this size,
Mm,
and we're like this instead of going right. Like we could just do a little bit of that. And of course, like there has to be a balance. Like trust, I love sugar.
hmm
I love cookies, and I love shoes. you know but I grew up in the jungle. I grew up climbing trees. I grew up shaking a branch so that all the coconut would fall down, and like I want to be able to give that experience to my children. So whenever I can, I fly them to Colombia, even if I can't go, so that they can have that kind of childhood, so that they can really appreciate that. And I think that for even for the videos, like my cousin Carlos, he did all the drone
hmm
shots, and it was important for him to just capture that beauty. It's just like nature's like, what else do you want? It's like, it's like that doesn't turn like. I feel like people don't know how to be turned on by nature. I feel like when people figure that out, and I'm not talking like take a tent
hmm
and sleep in the woods. Like, no, I'm gonna sleep in my bed. Thank you very much. But just like you go into nature, it's just like really breathe that in, and like not try to document every single moment of your life. I don't care about how you live. I don't care. I don't care about I saw that. I don't care. It's like we need to go back to just living our lives. And I feel like my generation, you know, born in the late 80s or in the early 90s, the internet was this thing that was still plugged to the wall. And I think that because of that, we still had our times that we went out. So now we are just too attached to the ether. Like we're too attached. It's like we are in the matrix
hmm
right now. um, but I am also grateful to it. It's just like we just need that balance
hmm
so that we can really find that beauty and inspiration. Because you can see it. It's like, oh, the songs now, and I should not name any names because I got in trouble this morning. But now it's the 80s, right? Now is the 80s synth.
Again,
Oh wow,
yeah,
great. We're really pushing
yeah.
boundaries here. So, and like the big like Latin stars right now, like all those trap artists, it's like you have the budget. Like imagine if I had the budget to go to Colombia and have a choir
Mm.
or a 20-piece marimba ensemble, like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not gonna do the same 80s whatever. So just download the pack from Ableton and get that. But if you just take that money and travel and go to Puerto Rico, go to Panama, like go to where the real music is and just capture that. That's beautiful to me. Like that's the so I'm trying. Yeah, that's what I'm trying right now. That's my challenge right now. It's like how can I put that
Right.
beautiful into the
Yeah.
record?
Do you
So
feel that's a bit of like when you're not trapped in like a distraction cycle or like a dopamine kind of junkie and you slow down in nature, do you feel there's like a dissolution of the self or like you're kind of the human's tendency towards narcissism is relaxed?
I hope so.
Um,
I hope so. It's just people just need to leave the phone at home. Go to the beach, go to the river, like don't bring the phone. Or maybe okay, take a photo, but just one. And just put it away and really live, in that wave. Like really because I feel like people are kind of doing things so that they can take the photo so they can put it
mm,
online more than I'm gonna go out so that I can live my
yeah.
life. And now we can't even go outside.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
you should have been paying attention. Should have been paying
I
attention,
heard
should have been looking
trying to
around.
remember where it was from. There's some thought experiment about like if you could imagine yourself old and on your deathbed, like how much would you pay to be able to live one day where you just like spend time with your family or live one day where you just like how much would that actually be worth to you? And it's a really interesting like thought experiment to like really pull yourself into the present. Okay, listen, another question here from Flat Booty Nino. This is a change of tack. By the way, I love saying Flat Booty Nino over and over. That's kind of the funnest handle. Oh, and incidentally, I got to do this one, but if anyone who's watching this, I'm interviewing lots of people on this Twitch channel at the moment. If you don't know my stuff, I'm a record producer, kind of collaborator, mixer, songwriter person. I know Lido through a bunch of mutual friends, but
Damian Taylor is a big
oh,
deal.
bless you. We
He's a big
there's a thing
deal.
where we're all, making music or art and we're all kind of locked away in our own houses. So I've been thinking about this a lot before even COVID-19. Like I miss being in multi-room studios where people come in and you hang out and you talk. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do on this Twitch channel. So if you're enjoying this conversation with Lido, please just drop a little follow on there. Then you'll get a notification when I'm going online with other interesting people. But going back to this question from Flat Booty Nino, do you have any tips for someone who's trying to get into the industry and how do you protect your art from the vultures? I guess this would be like if you could go back and tell 20-year-old Lido something, what would you tell her?
I would tell her not to share her ideas before they were done. And I would tell her not to um, be too generous and let everyone that gives her a like or a follow in.
Mm,
Um, really protect your privacy and curate yourself from the get go. So if I was, 19-year-old Lido now, today, and I didn't exist online, but I had this wonderful song, I would make sure that the song comes in a beautiful package, in a with a well thought picture or illustration that really makes sense with what it sounds, um, and separate my art persona with my personal with my personal online or my personal name. Keep those very separate. That's very important. And to protect your art, depending on what country you are, in Canada we have SOCAN, which is the what is it? Uh,
Performing Rights Association or something? Yeah.
yeah, it's like yeah, like Writers Association. So even the songs that I haven't put out yet, I have my lyrics and I have the music and the shareholders and all the people that are included, and just protect everybody and write that so that if anything happens down the line, you can quickly take the music down or have people pay you. um, yeah, find a publisher. Don't be afraid to ask people who are in management or publishing for questions. Most managers are really good, and especially people that run independent labels. They have a lot of knowledge, so don't be afraid of befriending those people. And those are the people that are going to guide you. People that are invested in something, people that are invested in sound, people that are investing in the music industry. You'll know when it's for the right reasons, and you should be with those people. And the most important advice that I would give people that are starting in music, especially people who are very talented and they have that star and like light in them, people like us attract the worst people. We attract leeches, and we attract people that want to be famous or bright by association instead of looking within themselves. So you have to be very careful with those kinds of people, and don't don't accept people complimenting you all the time. If you have a friend that all they do is compliment you, that's bad. That's bad. You need the friends that are going to be like, you look a mess. You think that looks good on you? I don't think so. Like people that really care about you and that will give you constructive criticism instead of just adulating you. That's dangerous. So
Amazing. I want to actually bounce one thing off you, Lido. Like I came up in a different career path because I came up through a recording studio, so it wasn't like a public facing side. But I remember when I was like 21-year-old Damian asking advice for some older people in the studio. I think I was working on projects where like the producer was asleep on the couch most of the time, and I was kind of like sitting there kind of doing everything. And I was kind of certainly aware of like, okay, there's different ebbs and flows. But I asked someone about this, and they said, and again, please bear in mind, this is like a behind the scenes thing, but he said to me, well, you'll go through a few different phases of your career. The first one is nobody cares and no one will give you any, no, you can't get in the door. Then the next phase is like you manage to get in the door, but you can't really do much. Then after that, which was the one that I was in, which is that you're through the door, but people are basically going to take advantage of you for a while. And then you have to hit this point as soon as you can where you have enough clout, basically, or enough of a reputation to be able to put your foot down and not accept it. And I mean, it's funny looking back on it because it was in the UK, and the class system is a very real thing over there. So it's almost like accept being a peasant for a while or something. But I don't think that's exactly correct. But it's like also just being aware of which different stage you're at. But I think ultimately getting to that point of like representing yourself and carrying yourself the right way. And I really believe in like giving everyone around me a shot or a chance at kind of working with me or doing something together. And then if I find if someone is not behaving honorably or in a way that I feel good about, then you just very nicely let them go. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like you're panning.
Be diplomatic.
You're like,
be diplomatic, but just know, the more that you do this, it's just so obvious. I'd rather work with someone that has 500 followers, but is very extremely professional, talented, and has good ear, than working with someone that supposedly does the same thing and have millions of followers, but they're a complete asshole. Like it's just not gonna work, So
and so you think of it with people, it's a bit like panning for gold. It's like you have to put a big shovel of dirt in your pan and you shake it around, and most of them are going to fall through, but then you find those little gold nuggets, and those are the ones to keep. So the people who are good people like have their back and treat them incredibly well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you can take them along. Like to me, the people that I work with, most of them, are people that have been working with me or that we've had a relationship or worked in any capacity for the last 5 to 6 years. So to me, I have a vision that we're all growing together and that we're all going to go somewhere together. With Miss Colombia, I kind of feel like this is my actual first album. I feel like La Papesa was like an EP that was like too long to be an EP, but now there it is, But I feel like Miss Colombia is like, okay, this is it, and like I had my kids. I kind of did it all in reverse, the order, I'm supposed, But at the same time, it's like, you know what? Now I'm gonna go on tour, and everything is way more easy. It's easy. Like I have figured it out.
Mhm.
I cracked the code. I'm very happy. I have my shit together. Now let's bring all this music industry bullshit, because it's 99% of the time, the good percentage is when you're live.
Mm.
When you're live in front of an audience, or like moments like what we're living right now, when we're just talking about music and we love it. But yeah, for whoever is starting, you need to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Have thick
Yeah.
skin, because yeah.
Totally. Great. All right. Sparkles TG is asking, Lido, earlier you mentioned not wanting your music to be classified as world music. How would you like us to describe your music to other people?
For the longest time, I had it as música satánica. Because when I love metal music, so in my village I would like play the music super loudly, and my neighbors would be like, "You really like that satanic music?" But then I think that my music is pop. I like to call it avant pop. Um, experimental, yeah, experimental. I do experimental music. Yeah.
Love it.
Experimental music.
Do you feel, is there like an area in your music that you have not been able to explore yet that you really want to? I mean, you did mention, going and recording like a 20-piece marimba ensemble, but I'm talking a little bit more on like a vibe level. Like I feel like I personally want to make a bunch of 8-hour long songs that just go do 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 for like 8 hours, and you just put them on when you're doing other things. Do you know what I mean? So I have like this unfinished mental Rails project. So you just put on the thing, and you're just like, it's kind of like lock-in music, which is more like music as a tool as opposed to a record I want to make. But do you have any kind of like strange avenues you want to explore? In terms of like what music can do, especially to like our experience, I think my biggest obsession with music is that it's a tool that we can also use as listeners to affect our subjective experience of the world around us. And for me, that really came from, I spent 10 years living in New Zealand and driving around like super remote mountains and ocean bays and beaches, listening to like really weird British electronic music. And that kind of juxtaposition was like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, whoa, I'm on Mars. But like what you're saying about like the Sublime and stuff like that. Does that make sense as a question? I know it's a bit out of left
Totally
field.
makes sense. I mean, I know. Trust. I will have my 20-piece marimba ensemble.
Oh, I believe you.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
The thing that I have yet to tap on is doing an album in English. To me, that's the how. Because I actually have this project, okay, which is like an art project, called My Darling Clementine.
Oh my God, my middle name is Clement.
Well, there you go. And My Darling Clementine, the songs there are singer-songwriter, with a guitar.
Oh, whoa.
Okay. So it's guitar and voice. And the character is my darling Clementine, who lives out in the field in a small town, and she doesn't talk to anyone because she's too shy. So she's like a machista guy, like dude, bro, fantasy. Like she's super cute and she doesn't talk. So I was like, if my La Papesa project doesn't work out, I'm gonna put these songs out because they're all in English and they're all like sweet. And I wrote them, when the moldy peaches were like a huge deal because of that movie, Juno. And to me, it's like cringe. Like that's like, I can't stand that kind of music. So I was like, wait, I should do it. So I wrote like all these songs.
Oh my God, you wrote
them? Yeah, I totally did. And the first one is called Rainbows. And the lyrics go, the rainbows are so pretty, I want to touch the sky.
Whoa.
Oh, yes, yeah. Damian. Yes. So, so for me, it's like, okay, but that's like all fun and games. But like, how how can I write a song, like an album in English that's Lido Pimienta? Like, does that make sense?
Totally.
Like, how can it still be me if it's not in
Mm-hmm.
Spanish? But then it goes back to, well, Spanish is also like a colonizer language. If it should be me, I should actually write a record in Wayunaiki. That's the language of my people. But I do it in Spanish because it's easier. Because it's easier. And in English, I find that writing songs in English is very difficult. It's so difficult for me because I'm writing about way dark stuff, and I find that English songs, um, like the language is, it's more simple. So that's my like, how can
Is it
I,
like going from
you
using a
know, like,
paintbrush to making like pixel art for a Commodore 64 or something like that? Like you don't have the resolution. Yeah.
I don't, because like, even um eso que tú haces no es amor, so it's like, but if I sing it in English, it sounds like shit. That thing you do isn't love. It isn't love. Like, to me, that sounds like shit. So that's the thing. It's like, okay, how,
Yeah. Yeah.
how,
Wow.
how I'm going to. So you
You
never
never
know.
know. Okay, that's wild. And I mean, this is an interesting question about language. Are you fluent in your indigenous language as well? No.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Right.
not. I'm very basic, and the more that I live in Canada, the less access that I have to my grandmother.
Right.
So I am, though, making a conscious decision that when my daughter starts kindergarten, and when she has her own schedule, then I'm gonna go to Colombia for 2 or 3 weeks and just stay there in the desert with the elders, so that I can
Wow.
get it all back.
Amazing.
Hmm.
This kind of leads into like a question about, you're obviously based in Toronto, but you go back and forth a lot. Like, what is it that you find advantageous to being based in Canada, or to spending a big chunk of time in Canada? And what do you get and get done when you're like in North America versus, you've talked a bit about what you get out of being in Colombia, but I'm wondering what are your advantages for being in the T dot, I hear the locals like to call it.
I don't know which locals you're talking to. I say Toronto.
Right. Yeah.
Toronto. Okay? Toronto. It's very simple. It's called, you make the money in dollars and you spend it in South America, because it stretches 4 times.
Right.
So, for example, I live in an apartment in Toronto that me and my baby daddy number 2 rent. It's a beautiful apartment, but for me to buy this apartment, I am gonna need like a $500,000 down payment, right? In Colombia, I have land, right? And right now, I just finished doing the design for an artist residency or Center for the Arts. And next week, I'm going to talk to an engineer and an architect so they can tell me how much money do I need so I can build this thing,
Whoa.
And it is completely possible, because right now, like, $1 is $4 in Colombia. So that's basically what it is. This is my base. This is where I handle my business. This is where I make the money so that I can create the spaces and the things, because I have to think about, when I'm old, where do I want to live? And it doesn't look like winter. So that's basically what I'm able to do. Also, people in Colombia that are in the creative field, the ones that get to do creative work, they work incredibly hard. Like, the work ethic to me is superior. The motivation and the dedication are superior, and they're different, right? Like, in North America, like, you make the money so you can go to the mall and buy stuff, but in South America, it's survival, right? So I love to give work to Colombians. I love to go to small villages and go with a big production, because when we do a music video, right, I can make a music video in Toronto, but it's gonna look like shit. and it's gonna cost so much money. But then I can go to Colombia and it's gonna be the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen, and I'm gonna employ people. And now I'm gonna go back to the same people because now they're getting an education in the production side of the
Mm.
videos. So now that's why I want to build this center, because how great would it be for somebody like Damian Taylor to go to a city like Riohacha in La Guajira and just teach kids production, right? Like, that's amazing. Like, that kind of cultural exchange, I don't really see it happening because tourism is what we know more of in Colombia.
Mm.
So there's some few residencies that are popping up, but mainly it's like a tourist hostel, hotel, you know, community. So now it's like, well, I think that people would really appreciate going to an artist residency in South America where people can go and really get into a culture, um, based in collaboration. So, like, I can totally see you, going with like a Zoom, just like hopping in a bus and just like getting the sounds. It's very
Mm.
different. It's a very different culture, and you can really, somebody like you could benefit, um, from that, as well as people can benefit from you. And I feel like there's this niche that we're not really exploring when it comes to art. Because like I go online and I'm like, okay, I want to go on an art residency in Italy, whatever, some random town. You sometimes have to pay up to 700 to 800 euro a week,
Mm.
and they don't cover travel,
Yeah.
they don't cover food, and you get a piece of shit bedroom with like a tiny window. What is that? Stay home then. But like for a fraction of that
Mm.
price, like I would make it so that you're gonna learn how to weave from an elder,
Yeah.
and she gets that
Yeah.
money.
Well,
So
and I guess and you'd benefit a
that.
lot more because the cultural difference is greater. It's like that you tend to get the most growth when you have larger differences at play. There's more
Mhm.
potential for change in a way.
Mhm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But listen, we have another.
I have big plans,
Yeah, no, I
Damian.
mean,
That's what
yeah,
I want to
count
tell
me
you.
in is the simple answer there. Sparkles CG has another question for you. He says, Lido, I deeply respect you for the way you describe your own intersectionality on a personal musical level. I believe you work with a tribe called Red. How is that experience?
So a Tribe Called Red and me are cousins. So a day at the studio with them looks like they're playing video games, and we eat cake, and then we listen to the song, then we record it. It really, it's hard for me to talk about them not in those terms because it's just really like most of it is already ready, when I go in the booth. But sometimes they'll send me a loop, and then I'll turn that loop into like a 4-minute thing, and then I'll add violins or whatever other stuff. And when we're together, actually, like Tim and Bear love when I bring like my pedals and my loop pedals and stuff like that. So I notice that they record more of like the live experimental looping thing that I do
Hmm.
when I'm not even thinking than the stuff that I write.
Right. Yeah.
So you should have them on this
Oh
show.
my God, I'd love to. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
link you. I'll link
Please
you.
do. Please do. Actually, that's just, you mentioned it briefly before, but like, I think another great quality you have is you're very generous with sharing your friends with each other. I'm now like the world's biggest fan of your friend Gustavo, who did that amazing video for our collaboration. Anytime I hit you up with someone, you're like, oh, you need to speak to this person or that person. It's really kind of amazing how you just really share human. You're very generous with humans. Some people try to keep folks to their chest a lot. Just I think
Ah,
it's an important characteristic, and it's how we all kind of grow and evolve.
I think it's because of like my curatorial brain. I can just see what
Oh, you went to
works.
university for it, didn't it? Curation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like this goes well with this, and I'm not like that with everybody because I learned the hard way
Mhm.
from all those bad stories from the past. you know I only make connections with people that make sense and that will appreciate it, and
Mhm.
that they'll do the same with me.
Yeah.
Because before, I was giving emails and like having people not go through the manager,
Mhm.
and then bad things would happen
Right.
and I would end up being hurt. um but yeah, it's like, I think that it's important for us to collaborate, and it's important to create something new, because everything is being repeated. So, hell yeah, Damian Taylor and Bombay Stereo,
Yeah.
absolutely. Damian Taylor and Tribe Correct, of fucking
Yeah.
course. Like,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Great. Well, listen, I've told the chat that you have things to do, Lido. I know you got another appointment bearing down on us. So just like any other questions from anyone, I think we covered an amazing chunk of ground. Lido, can you pop that link in again for the GoFundMe? Yeah, I love that. So yeah, let's all. Can you tell us about exactly what's going on there? What you're raising funds for?
So I'm trying to raise money and send like $500 to $1,000. So 500 every 2 weeks to a group in Colombia that are helping people. They're basically, they take the money, go to the grocery store, and get a bunch of. They shop for 70 to 100 families.
Wow.
Again, because the dollar is so strong in South America, it like we can really reach and feed a lot of people. The gremio de músicos, or the musicians group, for traditional music right now, they're really hurting because these people already live in poverty. These people don't have the luxuries of getting royalties or getting their songs in a commercial, like they don't get that. So because of COVID, people can't really gig. So they're not eating, they can't feed their families. And a lot of them are elders without pension. And because a lot of these people live from agriculture, they can't leave their house to go and pick up their crops either. Like, it's like very tricky situation. So I'm trying to, every week I raise about $1,000, and then I'll send the money so that they can have food. Like Sexteto Tabala, for example, right now they're really struggling right now because they're Cassiani. He's 89 years old, and his son doesn't live in Palenque. He has to go back and forth. It's like a whole complicated thing. So I'm trying to just set up different accounts so that the money just goes directly to them. So donate, please.
Amazing. Great. Well, listen, I think that's a perfect note to wrap it up. Lido, thank you so much. Congratulations on making a masterpiece. I can't wait to see what you do next. Hey, we hope you enjoyed that video. A couple of more links here for some talks we think you'll like. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and otherwise head over to completeproducer.net so that you can connect with other music making geniuses from all over the world. We'll see you there.